Sorry, it's a long one, but I think it's worth it. This isn't one single event, but rather a series of events with my former best friend, Dylan. I met Dylan when we were both in 7th grade. Dylan and I became best friends almost instantly. We both loved skateboarding, the same music, the same video games, etc. I thought Dylan was so cool, and vice versa, although we always competed over stupid shit. We had a weird relationship from the start, some kind of rivalry that is hard for me to explain. It's like we had a love-hate friendship, yet we were attached at the hip. It was always about who was better at what, who had the better stuff, etc. Dylan was hilarious and usually nice, but also intense. He would get very angry or upset very quickly. He took things personally. If somebody made a rude comment toward him, his whole demeanor would change. He would be fuming for the rest of the day. One tiny incident would send him over the edge, and he would either unload on the person or plot his revenge. However, he was typically more passive-aggressive, and I felt like his rage was hidden under the surface. He would try to mess with the person by stealing their things or tripping them in the hallway, then acting like he didn't do anything. What the f***? Weird shit. Dylan scared me sometimes, but I'll get into that more later. It's important to note that Dylan only acted mean or crazy around other kids. In front of people's parents or teachers, he was an angel. Dylan would be such a dick to me sometimes, but nice to my parents, which drove me crazy. Dylan lived with his parents, but didn't get along with them at all, and was at my house almost every day for years. My parents loved Dylan. They thought he was the nicest, most polite kid. He would make a big show of offering to help around the house or to cook for us, and my mother would say shit like, "Why can't you be more like Dylan? He's a much better helper than you," which pissed me off. The reason why Dylan scared me sometimes was because of his anger and his mind games. I swear he tried to confuse me, convince me of things that weren't real, but when confronted, he would act like he had no idea what you were talking about, gaslighting. He played random games like this often, and it was annoying and creepy to me, but tolerable, like a quirk. Oh, that's just Dylan being Dylan. The anger thing, like I said before, he would take small incidents too seriously and even make violent threats, or say he hoped they died in a fire, or go into detail about how he would mess them up, etc. Scary to me, but because we were teens and I was more focused on myself, I never took any of it seriously. In hindsight, I should have. Despite the lies and his anger, Dylan was still fun to hang out with, and I still considered him my best friend. We would compete over video games, looks, clothes, and girls. Extremely petty things. Dylan and I were both into shoes and collecting cool sneakers, and sometimes Dylan would show up with brand new, expensive skate shoes that I'm not sure how he obtained, because I knew his parents wouldn't have purchased them for him, and neither of us worked. I felt like he always had to be better. If I bought new shoes, Dylan would seem a little angry and would show up one day with better ones, or a nice new jacket, or brag about a new game he purchased, or board accessories. I feel a little embarrassed about how materialistic we were back then, but I didn't understand why Dylan was always trying to one-up me, and this got worse as we grew older. I was so confused as to where Dylan was getting these new items all the time. Also, I had several items from my bedroom go missing after Dylan stayed over, but when I'd ask him about it, he would laugh it off, deny it, remind me what a klutz, or spacey Sally, I usually am, and that I probably lost them myself. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I was stupid. Despite any annoyances with Dylan, or his annoyances with me, we were still two peas in a pod, never separate. Dylan is the reason why I started skipping class and smoking weed in high school. I got detention more than several times, yet somehow Dylan never did, and this pissed me off. However, I soon got an edge over Dylan when I started dating a girl named Kayla in 10th grade. Dylan told me he was happy for me, yet made extremely bizarre statements that showed how angry he was, like negging or backhanded compliments at first. "I'm surprised you got a girlfriend before me. Like, what are the chances? If you know what I mean." I was stunned, not sure how to react. Figured he was implying I wasn't good looking. It was true. I wasn't as good looking as Dylan. I was kind of skinny and more nerdy looking than him, but the comments were hurtful. Or, damn, not the kind of guy I would expect someone like Kayla to go out with, right? It's so funny. Then it started getting even weirder. Kayla and Dylan became friends because she knew Dylan was my best friend already, so often we would hang out all together as a group. Dylan would bring up my personal embarrassing moments or secrets to try and humiliate me in front of Kayla or make me look stupid in front of her, then play it off as a joke. One time I actually said something to Kayla, but she defended Dylan and said she was sure he was just teasing. I convinced myself it was just teasing, until he began trying to actively sabotage me. I got my license that year, and my parents bought me a car as a reward. This was another thing that Dylan hated and was insanely jealous of. I wasn't rich, but my parents were more well off than Dylan's parents, and they definitely could not afford to get him a car. Dylan would make passive-aggressive comments implying I didn't deserve it, that I was a spoiled brat, etc., yet would solicit rides from me constantly. I started a new routine where I would take Kayla and Dylan to and from school every day. It was nice. We all enjoyed it, or so I thought. It was common for Dylan to stay the weekend at my house and then just go to school with me on Monday. Well, one Monday morning, I went out to my car and all 4 of my tires were slashed, deflated. I was freaked out. I didn't suspect Dylan because he was sleeping in my room the whole night, or so I thought. I am normally a light sleeper, so I thought I would have heard something if it were Dylan, and I didn't think he would go that low. Plus, why would he do that if he wanted rides to school from me? It made no sense. My parents were freaked out as well, and my dad ended up taking us to school. Kayla was on her own that day. They had a rift with a neighbor, so they figured it was him, but he swore he was out of town. I still have no proof it was Dylan, but looking back, who else? Replacing the tires cost a lot of money. Despite this being a scary incident, my parents didn't take it that seriously and were still convinced it was the petty actions of the neighbor, so I convinced myself of this as well. Somebody stole my clothes from my locker during gym on several occasions. The lockers were easy to break into, and it happened to people multiple times, but it had never happened to me until it randomly started happening. I had to wear stained clothes from the lost and found. Never suspected Dylan, but it was probably him. The backhanded compliments and shit-talking continued from Dylan around Kayla. She was oblivious, but I noticed. He would give Kayla specific compliments on her outfits, her drawings, or her hair in front of me, and she would completely light up. She said he was just being nice, and that I shouldn't be irritated by it, that I was being jealous. Then, a rumor started going around school that I had herpes. It was so petty and stupid, but people were literally saying that I was having an affair with the art teacher, and that's the real reason why she quit, and now I have herpes. Kayla asked me about this. She said she didn't believe it, but wanted to know where this was coming from. I asked a random kid where he heard about this, and he said, "Dylan told me." I asked Dylan, and he denied it, said it was all lies, that he would never say that about me. I reminded him he likes to play twisted games, but he said, "I wouldn't say something like that. That's too far even for me." He insisted he would never lie about something that could actually affect somebody's life and freedom. I didn't want to assume the worst, so I believed him. At this point, Dylan was like a brother to me, and it was true that his games were usually petty bullshit, so I believed him, and I feel so stupid for that now. Other people were actually believing the rumors, and it got so bad that I was called to the principal's office to discuss it. I denied and denied. I even offered to go to the doctor and get tested as proof. They had a fucking conference with my parents. They soon stopped and calmed down, mostly after a vicious verbal beatdown and lawsuit threat from my dad. I never got in actual trouble because I didn't do anything, but it was horrible, and I was bullied at school because of this. I am 100% sure in hindsight that Dylan tried to ruin my relationship and get me in trouble with this rumor. They said it was protocol to investigate any rumor of that nature, but my family and I were furious. There was zero proof that anything happened. It was all hearsay. Dylan started trying even harder to turn Kayla against me and make himself look good. She still didn't believe the herpes allegations, thankfully, and I'm sure Dylan was angry that his stupid plan to make her believe I had herpes didn't work. I trusted him enough to give him my phone password, and I had his. We'd borrow each other's phones if we needed to. He texted Kayla from my phone while I was sleeping, saying, "Find another ride to school tomorrow. I don't want to talk to you. Don't bother talking to me at school either," and deleted the text exchange. I texted Kayla in the morning saying we were headed over, and she said, "Changed your mind?" "No thanks. Brianna is taking me today." I was confused by what she meant, but I was dumb and didn't want to look dumb, so I actually took it personally and figured she was mad at me, so I didn't want to bother her. I just said, "Okay." She blew me off at school all day and wouldn't answer my other messages. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't suspect Dylan. He fake comforted me, telling me not to worry, saying he was sure she was just in a weird girl mood and that she'd get over it. Because I was insecure, I was too afraid to ask her directly for a few days why she was mad at me. I finally did, and she was confused. "What's wrong with you? I thought you were mad at me. You sent me a mean text message." I insisted I had no idea what she was talking about, and then she sighed and showed me our chat log on her phone. I was dumbfounded. I told her I did not send those messages. Somebody else was using my phone. It hit me. Dylan. How could he think this plan would work? Kayla asked why Dylan would do that, said he's so nice to her, and that he's my best friend. I tried to tell her about the other weird things with Dylan, why I was getting suspicious of him. She nodded, but still seemed skeptical. She still didn't quite believe that Dylan would try to ruin our relationship. I decided to ask Dylan to meet me after school to confront him. I told him I knew what he did and that there was no sense in lying about it. It was all coming together in my mind. After that event, all his gaslighting wasn't going to work anymore, and I knew exactly what he was doing. I felt so stupid for convincing myself Dylan was innocent. I called him out specifically. I started by telling him that Kayla showed me her phone, and I knew he sent those messages. His face changed. His demeanor hardened. I then told him that I knew he was the one who spread the herpes rumor, who slashed my tires, stole my shit, and that most importantly, I knew he was trying to ruin my relationship with Kayla. I asked him why the fuck he was doing this to me, that I thought he was my friend. How could he treat me like this? Dylan exploded at me. He said that I'm not grateful for what I have, that I don't deserve what I have, that I've always had everything, and he has nothing. I reminded him he had tons of way better stuff than me. He's a better skater than me. He got better grades than me, etc., trying to make him feel better, or somehow repair the friendship, because even though I was pissed, I still cared. But he wasn't having it. I asked what this was really about. Again, I asked if he had a problem with Kayla, or something, if he felt like she was affecting our friendship. I thought maybe he was jealous of her, that I gave her more attention. I didn't expect him to scream at me, saying I don't deserve to date her, that he should be dating her. He started insulting me and saying I'm ugly and a dumbass and shouldn't be dating a hot girl. He compared me to Napoleon Dynamite and said, "That's how you act," laughed at me, said Kayla deserves way better than me, and that he was trying to convince her to break up with me so she would date him. Before, I was trying to somehow repair our friendship, somehow talk things out with him. But after that, I was completely shocked he would be so deranged to think that plan would work. I knew he was crazy, but not that crazy. I screamed back at him and told him, "You know what? You're lucky I don't report you to the police. I could have you arrested. I could tell them you damaged my property, that you're a thief, that you could have possibly gotten the teacher imprisoned, etc." I told him I was telling my parents, and that they would tell his parents. He got quiet and said, "If you tell your parents, you will regret it," and walked away. I went home. I don't know where he went. I was scared. I wasn't sure if I should actually tell my parents or not. I was afraid he was going to do something. Up until this point, I hadn't told my parents anything about Dylan because I was afraid of starting unnecessary drama, didn't want them to get involved. It was embarrassing, etc. But that night, I told my parents. They were in disbelief at first. What? Dylan? Why would he do something like this? You guys have been best friends since middle school. But eventually, they started to believe me. My mom decided to call Dylan's parents and ask them to speak to Dylan about the matter. Said she was concerned and felt that Dylan was bullying her son. His mom said she would speak to Dylan and that she wasn't surprised. I was so scared. Then I received a call a few hours later from Dylan. I didn't want to answer, but I finally picked up. He sounded enraged and told me he was going to show up to have a talk with me, but I won't know when, and that I better be ready. I hung up and told my parents. They said that his mom had called back and said these events were the final straw for Dylan, and they were sending him to live with his grandmother out of state this weekend. I suppose they'd had enough of him as well, and I think there was worse shit going on at home that I was unaware of. I knew they didn't get along, but Dylan always painted himself as the victim. I now understood why Dylan was so angry on the phone, and I knew he blamed me for getting him sent away. I told my parents about his call. They said it would all blow over, to relax, because he was getting sent away soon, that he was just mad at getting caught. I said I wanted to go to the police, but my parents didn't want to. They said his parents were taking care of it. They said Dylan was just a kid, that soon I would no longer need to worry about him, that he was trying to scare me as one last hurrah. I begged them, please, can we call? They said no, we don't need any extra drama after all this. My dad said he'd keep an eye out for me and make sure we locked all the doors and windows. I was still terrified, but tried to convince myself it would all be fine. Dylan was going away. Everything would be fine, right? Surely the phone call was just a bluff. I went to sleep by some miracle, and then I woke up to pounding on my window at 2 a.m. Something was hitting my window. I realized somebody was outside, throwing rocks at my upstairs window. Dylan. I turned on the light, opened the curtain, and sure enough, there he was, standing below my window. To my horror, holding a knife. He saw me and started screaming at me. I opened the window to talk to him. He screamed at me, telling me to get the down there, that I didn't deserve to live, that I was trying to ruin his life, that he was going to kill me, that I needed to face him like a man. All this deranged madness. I screamed at him to leave. It woke up my parents. My dad finally called the police. I made the mistake of telling Dylan that we called the police because I just wanted him to leave. I didn't want him to start trying to break in. He bolted. The police showed up and took statements from me, and they ended up finding him hiding in the woods not too far from my house. Dylan was arrested that night, and his mom relayed to my family that he had threatened to kill himself and was acting erratic, so he was then taken to a psych ward instead, where he was held and eventually released. We were going to press charges for trespassing and harassment, the most we could do, but we ended up dropping them because his parents begged us to. They knew he was crazy, but didn't want him to suffer in jail. They did end up sending him to live with his grandparents, and magically, I never heard from him again. Kayla and I broke up when we graduated high school. We just grew apart, and I was moving away for college anyway, I haven't heard from her in a long time, but I believe she is still in the same city. I've tried to find Dylan online, but I can't find him anywhere. He's like a ghost. That night was terrifying, and I really thought my ex-friend was going to kill me if I went down there. I'm so glad nothing worse happened to me, and I'm glad that nightmare is over. Dylan is still out there. I wonder what he's doing now.